Today is all about D5 materials. We're going to look at grass, wood, brick, glass, perforated metal. This should help you make any material in D5. All right, let's jump into it. All right, let's start with grass. So grass, D5 has a great built-in three-dimensional grass. All you need to do is select the object you want to apply it to, go up to material template, and choose grass all the way down at the bottom. All right, then you're going to have some settings. There's different grass types, so different grass textures, and I invite you to go through and look at all of these. Some are more like grass, some are more like, I don't want to say weeds, but they look a little bit like weeds. I'm just going to go with a regular grass. Okay, then you're going to have the height of that grass. You can raise and lower the height. You can see I have these pavers built in, and I kind of like them kind of growing through the pavers, like as the concrete weathers and gets older. I really like that. There's blend amount, how much blend you want in there. If you want some color variation, I would lower that value. There's normal. So just kind of going through, as usual, just going through the number sliders and seeing how it affects the grass. I imagine you wouldn't want your roughness down because that would be like kind of shiny looking grass. How's the random UV look on this? Oh, not too much difference. But just go through and look at all the settings. Real simple, real user friendly. All right, that's grass. Now let's start to get into something called PBR materials, physically based rendering materials. All real-time rendering engines use them. And let's demystify it. What is PBR, physically based rendering materials? All right, let's head on over to the web to do that. Okay, so here we are. We have physically based rendering. I just did a search for it. Physically based rendering, PBR, is a computer graphics approach that simulates real-world behavior of light and materials to achieve photorealistic images. Okay, simulates. So it's simulating realistic, real-world behavior. And it's doing that with a series of texture maps. And if I go over to my next tab, I have polygon materials explained. So it's a series of texture map. If we look here, texture maps, base color map, ambient occlusion, roughness, normal, metallic, displacement. That's the layering of maps that make the material simulate real world. And just to go through a few of these, so base color, that's the texture. That's like the picture of the map. Brick, wood floor, marble. It's what it's made to, what it should be looking like in real world. Ambient occlusion is the way that it receives shadows from other objects. Roughness is actually glossiness. Roughness and glossiness. A normal map is your bump map. How much bump to have. Metallic. Displacement is like it's like bump on steroids. It's like giving it a three-dimensional quality. Those are the ones that I'm typically using inside any rendering software, and some additional ones might be like an opacity map to do perforated metal, and we're going to take a look at that. So we'll get real comfortable with all these texture maps and what they are. Where are we going to get our custom textures? Sure, D5 has a lot of textures built into it, or I should say a lot of materials built into it that are already physically based. They already have color, displacement, roughness, opacity. They already have those maps set up. But one really great place to go is ambientcg.com. What's so great about it? Well, it's free. But no, the textures are really good there. So when you get to ambientcg.com, you just want to go to PBR surfaces. We have a whole bunch of them, right? And you can see their keywords. You can type in, you can go to wood, you can go to stone, and you can go to so on. So I don't think they have a so on. But let's get some, let's go to wood, and let's download some of these. So I'm going to go with this one here. Now, when you're downloading these, you see you have 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K. Now, don't download 8K, please. 519 megabytes per per texture, per material. We want to keep D5 running smoothly, and we want to make it happy by not overloading it. So I go with the 1K JPEGs, not the PNGs. I go with the 1K JPEGs. I save a little bit. So you're going to be downloading these. You're going to want to make a material folder where you're saving all of these files. So I'm going to go ahead and make a materials folder so you know where you can find them. Now these are downloading as zip files, so you're going to have to unzip them. Remember, that's important. So I'm just going to save that. I'm just going to get a whole slew of these. So that was wood. Let's type in brick. We need a brick. Let's go for a brick. I want to go for something like a glossy, like that one. And download that one. Same thing. We're going to need a perforated metal, so I'm going to type that in. Okay, we have some good ones here. Here's a nice shiny one. I really like that one. So we got brick, we got wood, and we got perforated metal. That's going to get us going. Okay, so let's do the first step, which is to unzip. Need to unzip. You don't want to just go into these zip folders and try to grab material maps. You want to unzip them. So you got to do it right. You got to do it one at a time. You got to right click and you got to go to extract all. I always uncheck show extracted files. That just opens up a bunch of file explorer windows and confuses me. Okay, that's brick. We got sheet metal. We're going to extract that. And we got the wood floor. We're going to extract that. And then so I don't confuse myself later, I get rid of the zip folders. I don't need those anymore. I just have the folders themselves. All right. Let's get one more. Let's get a concrete, like a rough concrete for our pavers. This one looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and download that one. And let's unzip it. And we'll delete the original folder. All right, so we have what we need. All right, let's head on over to D5. All right, let's start with the concrete, okay? So I'm going to select that object. It's selected. I'm going to go here. We went here and we found grass. So there's grass, there's foliage, there's multimedia, custom alpha, cloth, displacement, car paint, flowing water, water, transparent, subsurface. So when you just want to make a custom materials, which is what this video is all about, is I'm going to click on custom. Okay, so the first thing you have is you have a base color. So you see that this color bleeds through the map. Okay, so if you want to add some hints of different colors, you can do that. Okay, if you want a little bit of a bluish tone, but I tend to keep this just in the white, kind of white material, so I'm not altering the texture so much. So that's the base color, but then I have the base color map, and I'm going to click on that, and we're going to go to our materials folder that we just made, and I'm going to go to concrete. Okay, so I have all these materials that we were kind of looking at when we were exploring the web page. Move some of this over. Okay, so we get a good look at it. All right, so still want to give us some more space so we can kind of see the names of these things. Okay, so you want to be paying attention to it. So I want to find color. That's this one. That's concrete color right there. So I'm going to click that, and that's going to be my concrete color, and you see that changes. That's the texture map. Then my normal, I usually have two options for that. I have a normal DX and a normal GL. And when we get to brick, it might be a little bit more obvious in which ones to pick. But what that's going to do is that's going to typically give a little 3D quality to it. So you see as I'm increasing that, I'm getting some three-dimensional quality there. Specular in D5, I'm really not sure what to put for the specular. Ambient CG doesn't really have a specular map, so I'm going to leave that blank. Roughness is going to be my roughness map. That's here. And we'll start to see this with some of the other materials. The lower the roughness, the more glossy it's going to be. This, we're not really seeing it from this angle. We don't need metallic. There is AO, there is an ambient occlusion, so I'm going to go ahead and put my ambient occlusion in. Okay, then there is the scaling in D5, which is locked by default, which is fine. So I can change the texture scaling on that. Depending on how I want that to be. So that's real simple, and we'll get more into it. We'll get into if you want a UV randomizer, which didn't seem to do much in this case, but sometimes it helps. There we go. Sometimes it helps make it less repetitive, less video game like. Triplaners for curved, undulating objects, not uniform objects. Round corner will work good in this one because we have these individual blocks here, so that will add a little softness to the end of it. Okay, limit color bleeding, that's going to be important with like a wood floor when you don't want the orange wood floor to bounce off all the objects. But this is looking pretty good. I'm trying to see if we missed anything. So you just want to go down the list, and then we can make some adjustments in a little bit here. As I kind of orbit around, I can kind of see how this material starts to look under different lighting conditions. Looks pretty good. Looks like what I would expect it to look like. Looks like concrete. All right, let's jump into this wood floor. This is a big one. Floors, like I said, they're a big part of your models, and they tend to bleed color on everything because they are the floor. The color bounces off of it. But let's go ahead and let's select this. It's already a custom. So it's a matter of just changing out the maps that are already there. So again, the base color, I'm keeping that white for now. Base color map, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go to my wood floor folder, and I'm going to start loading these in. Here's the color. See that change. Specular, I'm not sure again what to put there. Roughness, I'm going to put into it. My computer's beeping every time because I'm like triple clicking. Did the roughness go in? Okay, there's the roughness. Ambient occlusion. All right. Let's see. What's our UV randomizer is on. Personal preference there. I'm not really seeing that much of a difference. The round corner is not going to help me because it's not like I'm looking at the individual wood plates. So let's get a kind of a low look at this. Okay, let's look at some of these. All right, so roughness is one of those that I set a lot. So you see when the roughness is low, I get that really wet look, that real wet look on the floor. And when roughness is high, that's kind of going away. So it's not necessarily the reflectivity, it's more the glossiness. So we get a little look at that. Let's look at our bump. Our bump might look better on the brick texture, but let's take a look at that. So that's going to be the normal. The normal is the bump. We haven't looked at displacement so much. This bump it's not really doing it for me. I'll try the normal DX just to see if that's any different. And sometimes you do have to render these out to see. Yeah, not getting too much of a result that I'm looking for. Some rendering engines are better than others at kind of showing you this stuff. I'm just going down the list, and okay, there's my limit color bleeding. We might adjust that in the end. But here is my scaling. We haven't really looked at. That looks pretty decent right where it is. Okay, let's keep moving forward and see if we can. I guess ambient occlusion while I'm here. Didn't really put an ambient occlusion on. Okay, so it's at 0. So when I crank it up, not really getting much. Again, you need more objects. I think more objects to bounce off one another. So let's see if we can get that to show up, you know, once we get a ceiling on here and once we get some other materials. But that's looking pretty good with the right here with the concrete, the grass, and the wood floor here. Okay, it's a pretty thick wood floor. All right, let's go to the brick. Let's go to the brick. So already this is a custom material for us. You see it says custom. Sometimes, okay, so to see the displacement, which we haven't been seeing, you actually have to have this be a displacement map. So I might come back and re-look at the wood. But so I'm going to choose displacement. And then I have a height. I have a height, which didn't show up before. All right, so let's go through this. Let's go to our bricks. There's our color. Why are you so bright? Why is your scale so bad? Here, I must have put it in the wrong. I put it in the normal, that's why. The normal is going to be these normals. Which ones you like. I can already tell that I think I like the other one. Let's try it. See how that changes. I think I like the first one a little better. Okay, let's get the scale of this brick. It's huge right now, but let's put the rest of them in. So roughness. Let's lower down the roughness a little bit. Again, it's all about which angle you're kind of looking at it from. If I lower that roughness down, I'm not quite getting the floor does such a better job because it's rendering out the sky. Okay, opacity we're not going to do just yet. Ambient occlusion. Where are you? There's ambient occlusion. Here's my height for my displacement, and that's going to be displacement. There we go. We see some displacement there. Let's get the scale right with this. So now what I've noticed with D5 is that it doesn't always do the square textures as square. Like this is really long and really horizontal. So I notice you have to unlock this. And most of these textures that you're going to find on websites are going to be they're going to be square to begin with. So that looks a little bit better. It's still a little bit horizontal. And you got to let your video card kind of update. That looks a lot better. And then you can lock it. So 1-to-1 isn't always great, especially for the square. We haven't looked at offsetting. Of course, you can offset this in any direction, and the X and the Y, so you can really get in there and position it. If you were to rotate that, maybe like the wood floor, maybe if you wanted to rotate that. I don't want to rotate this. But if I go back to my wood floor, maybe I rotate that on a 45-degree angle. How does that look? Does it need to get updated? It's okay. It's not great. I'm going to go back to 0, but just so you see how you can do that. Okay. So that's our brick. Okay. Perforated metal. That's a whole nother type. Let's go back for a second to our wood floor, because I mentioned that for that one we just used a custom. Did it have anywhere for height? It didn't have any height. It didn't have a height map into it, which is what you'll use for displacement. So if I change that to displacement, okay, it kept my stuff, I think. I think it looks like it. I got a color, I got a normal. All right, so we got all the right ones. Now let's go with the height. Let's choose displacement. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of that. And let's take a look a little closer at the, we didn't really look at these maps. Like if I open this map up. So with all of these maps, it's using not all of them use grayscale. Some use black and white. The bump uses that like kind of purple color, but it's defining areas to do things. So maybe like darker grays are bumping out more, and middle grays are bumping out just a little bit less, and then white areas are not really bumping out at all. All right, let's keep going. And when we get a ceiling on this, we'll look at some of these materials a little bit closer. Let's look at the perforated metal one. Okay, so for the perforated metal, I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to go for custom. I'm going to use custom alpha. That's going to allow me to get an opacity map. So some of these just hide. I wish they would just use a custom material that had opacity, that had height. Just all the, why not, right? We need them all. So why subdivide them? So I'm not happy with that. But custom material. So let's get on into it. So let's go to base color map. Let's go to our perforated metal. Here's our color. Let's go to the normal. Again, decide which ones you want to use. Let's go to roughness. I love that beep every time. All right, let's go to roughness. Okay, opacity, that's going to be the important one. So opacity is this one. There. That's the big shot right there. Okay, so AO, ambient occlusion. Do we have an ambient occlusion for this one? Not really seeing one, but I think the color one is pretty close to what could be a good ambient occlusion. All right, so let's scale wise, I'm gonna make it a little tighter, but there maybe something like that. Again, this one is again trying to get the right proportions. So sometimes you have to play around with the X and the Y and then lock it, get that tied in. All right, for that I want to be really shiny. So I'm hoping that if I take the roughness, that's down. Do I have a roughness map? I'm sure I do. It's pretty dark, that roughness map. It's pretty dark. Okay, so give some specular. Lower the roughness. Again, specular, you do need some shine on it. Okay, so for perforated metal meshes, that works really well. Okay, glass, and then we'll come back and take a quick look at all of these together. So we have some glass, planes here. Let's look a little closer at that. So for glass, and I am going to make a separate video that dives into glass times 2, glass squared. But for that one, I'm going to choose transparent. Okay, so what do we have? We have refraction. So, you know, we're going through these materials, and I've used so many different rendering softwares, and you know, they're just setting these defaults up, so it's not like super magic. But what I like about this one is it has it has refraction. Refraction equals reflection. So there's nothing that says you can't use a transparent material for other opaque materials and just keep the opacity at 1, you know, as a solid one. But there, now you're seeing the opacity there. So for this, I'm not putting any maps on it. I'm just gonna work with the base color, just so you guys can see that. You can see that that's changing the color. Now, typically, you want to use a pretty light color for that. It's not seeing that updating great. Kind of zoom out a little bit. Thickness, if you don't have a thickness, you can apply a thickness. I have a thickness, so you can see the side. You can see the side of that glass. Now specular, I'm going to turn up. Okay, right away you see specular really affecting the refraction. If the refraction is down or up, not seeing too much there, but the specular and the refraction have to work together. But you need specular to get refraction or reflection. So maybe just based on other rendering software that I'm used, one way you can think of this is specular is the reflection, and refraction is refraction, how the light kind of bounces off of that material. But that looks pretty good as I'm looking, you know, kind of close at it. These all are starting to look pretty good with the light hitting them. All right, so we've looked at grass, we've looked at wood, we've looked at brick, we've looked at perforated metal. Let's just kind of see this from, I have a camera view set up where we can kind of take a look at this. Let's go back into Rhino and let's unhide everything. So we're going to type in show, just so everything shows up. That object I don't want. And then I'm just going to resync this and then head it back on over to D5. Has to think for a little bit. There we go. All right, so we got to get some light. Now, one important thing about materials is light. You need light to shine on objects, basically, so that their material qualities really come through. So let's go with the azimuth, just changing the angle. I want to light the front of that building. And then I'm going to raise the altitude up to kind of light the ground. There you go. Now you're seeing that concrete in the foreground. Glass is not as bright or shiny as I would like it to be. I don't know, without going through a whole bunch of light scenarios, if I can adjust that. I have the base color pretty bright. There, that's helping it. Okay, so that's one way to do it. The base color did brighten it up. That doesn't look good when it's on, but the opacity, if I make it more opaque, it's getting a little darker. If I make it less opaque, I'm starting to see through it. So it's going to be more of a lighting, adjusting the lighting, I think, to get that where I want it. All right, so that is materials. Let's render it. I'll probably fast forward this. All right, so here it is. You have today's rendering. All right. Hope you enjoy making materials. With what I've shown, you can make pretty much just about any material. All right, have fun. I'll see you on the next one.